Okay, we're making jalapeno bites today, and I think you'll like them. They are really amazing. So we're going to start out with, the recipe calls for half of a cup of cheddar cheese. And by the way, if you don't keep your cheese in the freezer and sometimes it goes moldy, you can keep cheese in the freezer. So consider doing that because that way you'll have the freshest cheese possible. And so this one I just took out of the fridge this morning. And we buy it at Costco, and now they sell it in these big farmer cut chunks. They're kind of weird, but and so I actually just put it on a cutting board and chopped it finer because I think it'll turn out better. And then we've got Parmesan cheese, and the recipe calls for about a cup of Parmesan cheese. So we've got that. And then it also calls for jalapenos. And jalapenos, this is what they look like when you buy them fresh at the grocery store. And when you cut them in half, they're like this, or like these little slices. And if you like things hot and spicy, then you leave the ribs, which are the white stuff, on the jalapeno. If you don't, you just scrape it out. And the same thing, if you like heat, you leave the seeds. And if you don't like heat, then you remove them. So I usually just use a spoon and scrape them out. Because my family is not into hot stuff, at least not that kind of hot stuff. So that's jalapenos. So I pre-sliced one jalapeno, and I just sliced it in half and made it into little rings and used a spoon to hollow out the ribs and the seeds because, again, we don't want those for my family. And then bacon. You can fry bacon. It calls for 4 slices. I just grabbed the bag of pre-cooked bacon bits and use that. It's not quite as flavorful, but sometimes you just don't want to make bacon. So that's what I did. So I've got a baking sheet here, and it's covered with parchment paper. I'm going to go ahead and put, by the tablespoon, 8 piles on my baking sheet of Parmesan cheese. And so it's not really going to grow, so you can put them closer together if you want. We're actually going to use our fingers. Well, I guess it'll grow a tiny bit. And so you do want to leave space because I definitely wouldn't want, anytime you go to all the work to make something, leave enough space so that you don't have to fight with your food spreading and touching each other. You know, it seems like such a simple thing, but so often I see people for their extended learnings who make cookies, and then you can tell the cookies all grew together, and they would have looked so much prettier if they just spaced them a little bit farther out and maybe made 1 extra pan of cookies. So I've got 8 piles of Parmesan here, and now I'm going to add the cheddar. It calls for about the same amount, but I don't think that needs that much. So I'm just going to put a little, like maybe a teaspoon of cheddar on top. And I think the recipe intended that because it calls for way more Parmesan cheese than it does cheddar, which only makes sense that that's their intention. I'm going to take a quick pause. There's somebody at the door. Oh, Mr. Maldonado, our student teacher. Okay, so we've got the cheddar on, and now we're going to put our jalapeno slices on top. Whoa, that's a thick one. You know what? I wasn't really focusing as well as I should have been today. I had 2 jalapenos because I made the ones to demonstrate for you guys. I had advanced, and I made cut those thick, and then some are really thin. So a good chef would have everything the same size, but obviously I didn't do a good job on that. Here's a thicker one. And okay, and then you're going to just use your fingers and bring everything together. And instead of just smash them down, I can smash that into there, I guess. And so you're just going to pull them together. I found that the ones I practiced with this morning didn't seem to need anything like that. It just kind of did its own thing. And then just sprinkle it with baking. And I also found that the bacon didn't want to stay on when I sprinkled it on. I saw the picture online had it like all in a circle on the jalapeno. I don't know if they had huge jalapenos or what was going on. But anyway, mine just fight me and fall off. And I really don't want to bake bacon that doesn't stick to the deliciousness. So anyway, just a little bit of bacon on every single one. And then it goes in the oven. The oven's at 375. And the recipe said 12 minutes. I would watch it at 10 minutes because the ones I made earlier this morning, at 10 minutes, they were done. They're plenty golden brown. I don't think they needed 2 more minutes. Maybe a little bit more bacon, because who doesn't love bacon? Anyway, so that's what we have, and it's going to go into the fridge. Sorry, I held it up too high for you guys. Fridge. Did I say the wrong word possibly? How about if I say it's going into the oven? Let me set the timer so I don't forget about them. So when they come out of the oven, you just let them sit on the parchment paper for a little bit to set, because otherwise they'll be just too cheesy and gooey. And here is the deliciousness. And again, I asked my husband if he wanted to sample them, and he wasn't so sure. And then he smelled the bacon and the cheese and the deliciousness, and all of a sudden he wanted some. So anyway, that is what with. And so thank you, Mr. Maldonado, for that recipe. That's really cool.